Not like he used to be all over the place, but he's all over the place with his story. And, you think this big superstar, he's got a smoking hot wife, and he's got all this money and he's famous and stuff. And then when you hear his story of recently, the dude's like, bro, I couldn't even wipe my own butt. I got a smoking hot wife. I can't even touch her because I'm worthless. I'm miserable. I'm addicted to everything. And I'm the most miserable I could be in the world. And everyone would think, God, how great would be Jelly Roll, right? But the freaking dude was miserable, and he had everything but his health.
Yeah.
But he
And for
turned
me,
it. But he
again,
turned it around, right? I mean, he's
yeah,
working hard to turn it around.
that's the magic. That's the magic. The human body is the best gift you could ever have asked for. It is a machine. It is a biological machine that heals itself. It will get better. All you have to do is give it what it needs and it will improve.
Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast. I'm your host, Gary Scott, and today my fit and fabulous guest is Alan Meisner. Hello, Coach.
Hey Gary, how you doing?
Living the dream, brother. Like I said, you know that, man.
Yeah.
Living the dream. So, guys, I'm going to go give you the 5 cent tour of Coach Allen real quick, and we'll get started. So, Coach Allen is a National Academy of Sports Medicine certified personal trainer, a precision nutrition level 2 master health coach, and a Functional Aging Institute certified functional aging specialist. Allen's also the host of the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, along with being the author of the award-winning book, The Wellness Roadmap, a straightforward guide to health and fitness after 40. But even better than all that amazing stuff is Alan and his wife live on a Caribbean island. Come on, man. In Boca del Toro, Panama, where they run Lulu's bed and breakfast. Living the dream.
Yeah.
That's it. So, Alan, welcome, welcome. Like I threatened earlier before, I promise I'll shut up. But before we get started, because we're the What If You Could podcast, I ask all my guests out the gate. So, Mr. Coach, what is your What If You Could?
Well, you kind of led me into one. I'm going to just mention it real quick, but that's not my one. Is what if you could just sell everything and move to a Caribbean island? Um,
That's mine.
it, it's not as easy and it's not as hard as you would think it would be. But the really one I'll get to is what if you could keep doing the things you love even when you're not supposed to still be doing those things? And I equate that to things like, golf and tennis and all the things, we do when we're younger, and then, we outgrow playing the sports and things that we love doing that defined us for most of our lives. And I think a lot of people think, yeah, you just get old, you stop doing those things. And that's not completely true. You stop doing those things and then you get old. It's kind of backwards. Um, we're capable of doing some amazing things, but we typically don't invest our time, effort, and money the right way to make sure we keep those. And unfortunately, later in life, that can even go as far as losing the things that you need, including the things that you would need to stay independent. And so I see a lot of people, I've seen this over and over again, and it kind of tears me up that just with a little bit of effort, a little bit of training, they wouldn't have to be in the condition that they're in and have lost the things that they're losing. And again, it's just something that's very hard for me to see because I know there's a fairly easy solution.
I always tell people that I am now the grandfather of 3 babies, 2 boys, Benny and the Jet, and baby April. And I tell everybody, dude, I'm going to be snowboarding with my grandkids at 90. I'm going to be snowboarding with my great grandkids strapped to my back at 95. Mm, I'm just gonna. I don't care. But it's so true. A lot of times it's little adjustments. I mean, we'll get into your book because your book's awesome and there's so many great points in there. But there's a book I got like in the 70s or something like that called I forgot the doctor's name now. It was called the 120-year diet. Some dude from UCLA, like I think in the 70s or something, wrote this book called the 120-year diet. And he just said, functionally, physiology, we should live to be 120, but we just don't do what we're supposed to.
We don't. We don't. Um, I went on vacation. As you might imagine, I live in the Caribbean. Where does someone who lives in the Caribbean on vacation? Well, it was Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. So I love beaches. So I went to I have a timeshare there. So I go to this. I arrive. There's an earthquake. So I'm in my Uber driving to the resort and literally bouncing in the road. So when we got to the resort, obviously they had vacated the resort. They didn't want people in there. They had to check the structure and make sure everything was safe. So they had engineers going through the building as I arrived. I get there and everybody's telling these cool stories. Obviously, when you're in a swimming pool, like a swim up bar, and there's an earthquake, you have a tsunami in your swimming pool. And so they're telling these stories. Everybody's laughing and joking except for one woman. And she's in her low 70s, I figure, and she is distraught. And I know sometimes with natural disasters, people can get a little upset, a little messed up. I've seen it before, but she was like way overboard. So I just went ahead and walked over and asked her if she was okay. And she said, "No, my husband is still in there." So what had happened was when the earthquake happened, they were on at their third floor room. He couldn't walk down the stairs and the elevator was offline. So she had to leave him there. And it happened so quickly, she ran off without her phone. So she didn't even have a way to contact him. Now, I asked if I could go in and help because I was going to just bull past the guys if they tried to stop me. But she said, no, there's two guys in there that are going to get him right now. But she was really upset. And, I would never want to do that to my wife, but they were there for a few days after I had checked in and I would see them together. And I'm thinking to myself, that was a life-changing event for them at that age. They may never go on a vacation like this again, and they most certainly will not be having rooms that are not on the ground floor, which again is another limiting feature. And had he just worked on balance, worked on leg strength, he would have been able to walk down those 2 flights of stairs, but he couldn't. Um, and so that's when I say you lose things you need to be able to take care of yourself. Sorry about this.
That's okay.
I
I
He
didn't hear it or see
knows.
it.
I'm That's the worst part of this. She knows I'm on a podcast right now, and I don't know why it won't stop ringing. I am so sorry.
I can't hear it, so it's good.
Okay.
We're lucky. Yeah, I can't even hear it.
Okay.
That's it.
It's
Yeah,
definitely on my side.
yeah,
Okay.
no worries, no worries.
Sorry about
You know,
that.
you've had some interesting revelations or wake-up calls, as you'd say, sitting on vacation in a
Yeah.
beach or in the sand or in a hotel room. I love this line you said. So one day while lying in bed of a hotel room, hungover and fat again. How many of us has just woke up hungover in a hotel room going, dude, seriously, bro, you gotta change some shit.
You gotta change something, yeah. And the worst part was this was 8 years after I had first come to the conclusion I needed to change something. And for 8 years, I'd been doing this and doing that and just nothing really connected and nothing stuck. And I'd lose a little bit of weight and then I'd gain it right back. And then I'd lose a little bit and I'd gain it right back. And so it seemed like I was my own worst enemy. And in a sense, I was. But I really just hadn't cracked that one little bit of what it takes to do hard things.
You know, just talking about that older couple and recently, jelly rolls all over the place. Not like he used to be all over the place, but he's all over the place with his story. And, you think, oh, this big superstar, he's got a smoking hot wife and he's got all this money and he's famous and stuff. And then when you hear his story of recently, the dude's like, bro, I couldn't even wipe my own butt. I got a smoking hot wife. I can't even touch her because I'm worthless. I'm miserable. I'm addicted to everything. And I'm the most miserable I could be in the world. And everyone would think, God, how great would be Jelly Roll, right? But the freaking dude was miserable and he had everything but his health.
Yeah. And for me
But he
again,
turned it around, right? I mean, he's
yeah,
working hard to turn it around.
that's the magic. That's the magic, the human body is the best gift you could ever have asked for. Okay? It is a machine. It is a biological machine that heals itself. It will get better. All you have to do is give it what it needs, and it will improve. And it never loses the capacity to do that. So whether you're in your 40s, your 70s, your 90s, if you do positive things for yourself, your body will respond and you'll get healthier and you'll get more fit. But you you have to start doing the little things consistently to get where you want to be.
When you answered the question of, the what if you could question, which is a great answer, and to paraphrase, basically said, what if you could do all the things that you love to do pretty much as long as you want to do them, if you could and you can. And like you say about the body, people talk about AI. AI is so big right now and how AI adapts and AI learns how you are and it interacts with stuff. The body and the brain are just this massive AI. It can adjust, it can change, it can shift. It's got its own immune system. It's a miracle, isn't it?
It is. It is.
And
It's one of
we
those
just
things.
take it for granted, right? We're like, I can smoke, I can drink, I can eat whatever I want. It's like, dude, you're walking around in the biggest skeletal miracle in the history of everything, and you just treat it like shit. What's wrong with you?
Well, and it doesn't roll around until it rolls around. That's kind of the problem is that, you're 20 and you're doing this stuff and you're like, well, I pop up in the morning, go to work, no problem. And then in your 30s, now you've got a headache and you feel terrible all day, but you still go get it done. You're in your 40s and now it's adversely affecting your career. It's affecting your relationships, it's affecting everything. And by the 50s and 60s, you're toast. Your body's not going to bounce back at all. And so you just really have to break this down and say, okay, I it's not that you can't have fun. It's not that you can't do a few things that are not healthy. But the point of it is most of the time you need to be doing the right things. So those few times when you're not a big deal.
Yeah, I try to live by 80/20. I eat healthy. I'd probably go 90/10. I think I eat healthy 90% of the time, and every once in a while I don't do something, an In-N-Out burger or something like that. But my first wife passed from cancer. She was only 46. I remarried, and my new wife is been sober for 22 years. So 6 years ago when we met, we talked about her sobriety and I went way down the AI rabbit hole. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to drink either. She goes, you don't have to do that. I don't care. If it's beer, wine, whatever. Have a drink. I don't care. I said, no, if you're not going to drink, I'm not going to. Let's just be on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
Why? And so it was amazing how much different I felt when I just stopped drinking. And I'm not preaching to anybody to stop drinking. If you want to drink, you drink. I don't care. But physically, I was amazed how I felt. And interestingly enough, my boys were never drinkers, really, but now they're just stopped drinking too. I think more and more people are leaning that way. But it's funny how my friends react. They're like, because my wife travels a lot. She's a scuba instructor. She goes all over the world. She's been to where you are. And people say to me, "Well, when your wife's gone, you drink, right?" And I go, "No, I I just don't drink anymore. But
Yeah.
it's hard to give up friends or give up food or give up social stuff or give up things. You almost lose people sometimes over just trying to do healthy things.
You do. You're touching on something that I think is really, really important, and we miss the other half of the pictures. You hear this term peer pressure, and everybody thinks when you hear the word peer pressure, that's terrible, right? They're going to make you do things you shouldn't do. But that just means you've picked the wrong peers, okay? If you pick good peers, they lift you up. They push you in the right direction. So if your best friends are working on being athletes and training and being fit and they're eating well, then it's easier for you to eat well. Your wife not drinking, it was easier for you to say, "Okay, I'm going to give this a go." It, if you did, you did, but you didn't, but it was easier because you didn't have your peers around saying, "Hey, what can I get you?" You know, it just slowly lifts out. And yes, there are people we probably need to outgrow. Unfortunately, if they can't accept that we're going to be different, then they might not be the best people for us to have in our lives a lot. Doesn't mean we completely don't spend time with them, but just recognizing that, Jim Rome said it, you're the sum of the five people you spend the most time with. That's the truth. And it's not just that they're smart people, you're learning things. It's they're good people and you're doing good things. They're healthy people and you're doing healthy things. They're fit people and you're doing things that keep you fit. And that kind of environment just helps build you. And so surround yourself with the kind of people you want to be like, and it's easier for you to be that person.
Yeah, I don't. I freaking love Jim Rome. Miss him. Um, but I don't know if he said this, but I know a lot of people said stuff like this. But if you're if you walk in and you're the smartest dude in the room, walk out of the room, go find a different room. And
Yeah.
if you're sitting down with people who are just whining and snivelers and backstabbing, just get up and go to people who uplift, are thinking positive, have goals and things like that. It's just so and that's why I liked a lot of your book. As you're going through that, I loved how it's just not a diet book, right? It's like an all-encompassing thing. Diet, sleep, movement, social connections, which is big in there. Uh, but also motivational, spiritual. Um, and so you're kind of a whole person sort of approach to wellness in your book. And I love that because you could read all the stuff you want about diet and exercise and stuff like that. But like we talked about, if you ignore those other things, it's just gonna make it so much harder on yourself to get
Yeah.
over there.
I'd like to say I was just brilliant. It was just it, wa- it was a happy accident. It was truly just a happy accident. I I didn't know what I didn't know. And I knew that, okay, number one, I can't train myself the way I did when I was in my 20s. I tried that, it doesn't work. I'll tell this story. I downloaded a version of Insanity Workout. This was back when DVDs were a thing.
I had
Okay.
it.
And I was like, I saw the infomercial. I traveled so much. I was like, I saw this infomercial, no equipment. So it was even to me, it was even better than P90X from that perspective. I'm like, I can actually do this. And so I was like, and they're having so much fun and they're all fit. And I'm like, this is what I need. 90 days of this will kickstart anything. So I buy the DVD set, I get it in, and then I rip it all onto an iPad, a company iPad, and I'm like, "Cool, now I'm set." So I thought, "Okay, it's Sunday, I'm flying out on Tuesday, I'm gonna do the benchmark workout today, and then I can start once I land where I was going, on, basically Wednesday or Thursday." It was gonna be a Thursday because it was different time zones. But anyway, so I take the benchmark test, and it's not really even a workout. It's just you're doing this exercise for a period of time, and it's just to test your stamina, a little bit of strength, nothing massive. The next morning when I woke up, I couldn't move. It felt like someone had beat me with a baseball bat all night long. I was hurting so bad. it hurt to reach over and grab the phone because I had to call off of work. I couldn't get out of bed, and I knew my whole day I was gonna really be suffering with this and not able to concentrate on anything. Um, and so, yeah, the delayed onset muscle soreness that happened because my body was not conditioned to do even the benchmark test. But here was that version of me just used that as the reason to quit. I never did a single one of those workouts. When I turned in the iPad like 2.5, 3 years later, I'd never played a single one of those videos. I handed it over to the guy, says, "Oh, you got all these videos on here. Do you want them?" I'm like, "No, no."
Hell no.
So part of it was education, but education without action doesn't mean anything. So I took the time to educate myself to get certified. I never intended to be a coach for anybody other than myself. So I learned what I needed to know and then I put it into action. And it was the action that got me going. And then it was the understanding, okay, I can't just lift weights and lose weight. I have to work on kind of what I'm eating. I have to cut back and stop the alcohol. So basically I'd make these little structural changes, and then I realized, okay, if I don't get good sleep, I don't want to go to the gym. And even if I do go to the gym, my workouts aren't as good if I don't get a good night's sleep. So I need to start working on my sleep. And then after that, and this was kind of the final bit, was the hardest part, was stress management. Because I had a very stressful job. I had very toxic relationship. Um, I was miserable. And so I was like, okay, I got to start working on being not being miserable. And so I ended up breaking up with a girlfriend. I ended up changing jobs. Still stressful, but not even close to that. So and then of course the moving down to the Caribbean island was just one more step towards living a low stress life, doing the things I love.
How did you I've got so many things from what you just said, but uh, have you were you in the restaurant or food business or what? How on earth did you say, "I'm gonna open up a bed and breakfast"?
Like another just accident. So okay, so in Panama, when COVID hit, they closed the country.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so no one was coming in and no one was going out at all. And for parts of it, we were completely shut in. So like you had to stay in your home for all but 2 hours a week, and it was designated by your passport. And during those 2 hours, you could only shop. You couldn't go out and go for a jog. You put your mask on and you went to the grocery store or the pharmacy, and that was it. My time ran from 7:30 to 9:30. The grocery stores didn't open till 8:30. So I would at 7:30, I'd have
Perfect.
a grocery bag in my hand, and I would go walking from one grocery store to the next. And so I just did this loop where all the grocery stores were in town so that I'm always walking toward a grocery store.
Very
Okay.
sneaky. You got in your
Okay.
exercise against the law. You broke the
I
law. You
did.
would have been shot in
I
California. They would have
well,
just shot you.
yeah, they're a little nicer about it here. But at any rate, I so after COVID, so obviously there was no tourism. This island was just vacant. And that's one of the advantages being on an island. If no one brings the virus on, we don't have the virus. So for the first half of COVID, no one was getting sick at all. And then a couple people broke the rules and then now the it was here. Um, but as they started opening things back up, people didn't want to be seen partying. You didn't want to have a big group of people together. So if there was going to be a group thing, it was usually on another island. So we'd get on boats and go. So my wife went to another island, and the guys were
Because COVID's not on that island. It's only
I
on your
I'm
island.
again, at this point, they just wanted to get back and start connecting and have social connection. And, again, don't get me started there because when they started saying social distancing, I was like, absolutely not. That's the worst possible word. We want physical distancing. We need social closeness right now as we go through something this traumatic. But I understand why they use the word. It's a medical term, a scientific term. It has nothing to do with the actual, but it ended up,
Yeah.
it again. I
Don't
digress.
get me started.
Yes. So at any rate, my wife went and she was hanging out with some people and talking, and we had been looking for a place we wanted to buy. We'd been here for a couple years, and now we were in the market to ready to buy. And so we were kind of looking around. We wanted a place that had some residual income. So she's thinking like a house with a couple casitas. We can rent out the casitas and we have some income coming in. But then she found out that Lula's was for sale. And when she found that out, she had a conversation with the owner who was there. He told her what he wanted for it. And she came home and said, "We're buying Lula's." Now she'll
And
argue and
when mama says we're
yeah.
doing something, we're doing something. So
And
yeah, you're
she'll
like, okay,
she'll argue
what
with
do you
me
want
and
me to
say,
pack?
I didn't say it that way. I'm like, okay, you don't understand. When you say we're going to do something, I understand we're going to do it. Um, but we knew, well, I went over when I looked at the place, we did an assessment of how much work was going to need to be done to get the place up to snuff because the previous owners hadn't really invested. But we ended up buying Lula's and we spent 11 months refurbishing it, getting it all ready. And we didn't have experience. Neither one of us did. So this was all figure it out as you go, trial by fire, and we just made it work.
Awesome. You know, who doesn't love a place called Lulu's? First of all, that's the first thing. But oh, that's a great story, brother. But I want to go back. I just had to ask that question. So, um, first off, you like you said, you cannot outwork a bad diet.
Yeah,
Physically impossible, right? You cannot do that. And stress and disease are two incredibly locked in animals, right? If you have too much stress, you're going to have dis-ease in your body and your mind and your soul, and that is going to give you disease, right? I just lived to do that. Um, but you focus on aging and people over 40, and I've went through some weird health stuff because I've always been super healthy, never not. Um, it's amazing how I atrophied when I couldn't work out even for just a few months until I started this cardio rehab. Man, you've got a lot going against you when you hit 40, 50, 60. I'm 63, right? I mean,
yeah.
it's a challenge to really, especially if you've never been a workout person. If you decide at 60 to start getting a health, boy, you better take your time. You better do it right, and you better get your bug. You better get the wellness roadmap or you're in big trouble, right? It's tough.
Do the right things. You talked a little bit about stress. The reason stress is a problem is that our body has to deal with that. Okay. And so if you put something on a system and you're stressing it and it's working to try to deal with that stress, and now it comes up with a virus or heaven forbid a cancer, or something else, now your body's not in a condition to be able to optimally deal with that. For the most part, our immune system beats cancer every day. Okay. There are cells that pop up every day in your body, billions of cells. A few of them are popping up and they're not what they're supposed to be. Your immune system goes in there and squashes those things, provided it's in the shape it needs to be in. Now, as we get older, we do naturally have things that are occurring, sarcopenia, osteopenia, and then it's just cumulative load of everything we've put on our body and taxed our body to do. So we are less resilient. It's like recovering from from a night out. We don't. nearly as fast if you know and then again it's harder and it doesn't work as well. That's a natural gonna happen, you know, so we do have to look at it from that perspective. But the getting started part really is just a function of understanding where you are and starting from there. So, I've coached a lot of people, and then I'm looking back at my own journey. I didn't talk about this in the book, The Wellness Roadmap, but it's a concept I've come up with and I pay a lot of attention to now is that we have these mindset types. And one of the mindset types, one of the first ones I dealt with is what I call a windshield person, and that's a person who's sitting there and looking in the rearview mirror at who they used to be and lamenting that they can't do those things. Every time they try, they break. So I'm looking in the mirror, remembering my 29-year-old super athlete self. I'm not that person anymore. And so what I have to do to step forward is realize this is the driver's seat right here. I'm in the seat. Okay. I have to recognize where I am. And if I spend all my time looking in the rearview mirror, I won't be able to go forward. I need to turn my attention to the windshield and now I can move forward. Now, for a lot of folks, when it comes to health and fitness, they overcomplicate it because they're trying to do too many things at one time. The reality is, you can make one little change, itty bitty little change. So you can say, look, I'm going to set a goal. And when I work with my clients to set goals, they say, okay, here's what we're going to do. Our goal has to be action, not outcome. We don't care how much weight we lose. What we know is if we cut back on the desserts, we're probably going to start to lose a little bit of weight. So if I say, okay, now I'm eating dessert every night, and it's like, okay, I got to stop that. I may say I can only eat dessert on 3 days a week. I didn't say seven, not seven. I said, I will say, okay, 4 nights a week, I won't eat dessert. 3 nights I can. Now, the advantage of that is that I basically set what I would call the slam dunk goal. My confidence level that I could do that is 100%. But if you said, "Never eat dessert again," the answer is that's, okay, not gonna happen. Now, when I'm all gung ho at the beginning, I might sit there and say, "Okay, that's what I'm gonna do. Until I've lost the 30 pounds, I'm not gonna eat dessert." There are some people that can grind that out, but most of us will get 15, 21 days in there, and we'll be like, "What's a brownie gonna do?"
Oh, and then, but add into that the yo-yo, right? I can hammer that out for 30 days. I freaking got this. I'm going to make
Yeah.
this work. And then on day 31, it's in and out, five cheeseburgers, two brownies.
It is
And then
because
you
we
go,
feel deprived and we feel, and so the whole point being is if we just say the little thing, it's like, okay, I can go to Five Guys, but I'm not going to get fries. The fries don't add value. And when I really look at what we're paying for with the fries and the soda, those really don't, they're not worth what we pay for. The burger's good. And I like the burger and I'll eat the burger. And but that's enough calories, that's enough food, full stop. Now, after I've secured where I'm okay, now when I go into order, if I do order that, I don't order the fries. The next thing maybe is, okay, I'm just not going to eat the top bun. Okay, again, just a small little cut. Can I do that? Can I just avoid eating? Just tell them, don't put the bun on. Don't put the top bun on. They'll do that. They don't like that part. If you just say don't do the bun, they're more than happy to do that. But if you say just don't put the top part of the bun, they got to throw the top part away anyway because they can't sell half bun. But the point being is that you make it no brainer. It's like, okay, I slam dunk, I got this. And then you do that long enough where it just becomes the way you do things. When you pull up at the drive through, which you don't do often, is don't even order the fries or the soda. It's like, I just want the sandwich. But the combo's only, no, I just want the sandwich.
but if you get the combo, it's like the drink's free. It's like the
It
drink's
almost
the
seems
worst
like it.
part of it, bro. I don't want.
It's like, no, I just want the sandwich. And so, and they're gonna push. They're gonna push because 'cause they're trying to upsell, that's their job.
Yeah.
but it's just one of those things. Make the decision what you're going to do, make it super, super easy, and then tell somebody. Ability is an unused asset that most of us have that it's easy, it's quick. And from a motivational perspective, it's quick capital. I hire a coach, I join a group. So I join a spin class. I'm going to show up for the spin class because if I don't, they're all going to call me and ask me if I'm okay. So, you get this level of account. I had one client tell me, he says, I go into the gym every day at the same time, and it's the same people in the gym. And he says, the days I don't go to the gym, I'm thinking about them. I don't even know their names. I've never talked to any of them, but they know. And I think it's the same thing for me. When I'd go at 5 o'clock, and the 5 o'clock crew was there was one lady on the treadmill. I called her treadmill lady. There was one guy I call bicep guys because he only worked biceps. There was one other lifter, and then there was a sheriff dude. Those were the other four people that were at the gym with me at 5 o'clock in the morning.
I love
You
the bicep dude. He's got the guns of the
He did
bicep.
have guns. No, he that's what he worked on. He had guns, but it's like every time he's in there doing curls, and I'm like,
Dude, work the calves,
squats,
bro. You look stupid.
squats,
Um,
something.
yeah, that's why I love, you did a Tough Mudder with your 20-year-old daughter. Now she's a CrossFit trainer. I always worked out with my sons when they were involved with football and sports and stuff like that. And I love that. I had a big gym in my garage, and all the kids would come over and we'd work out. Dad's bench pressing 325, 330. I'm like, you high school wussies, you can't keep up with me. But now that I'm old, I'm at a place I never thought I'd see myself at, this Planet Fitness. I'm like, I never work out at Planet Fitness. That's a girl's gym, man. I'm not going to work out there. They're all in purple and stuff. I'm not going in there. But now I work out at Planet Fitness because I'm not even going to try to work out like I used to because it's stupid, right? My ligaments aren't going to like it. My joints aren't going to like it. My body's not going to like it. Now, I still like to lift weights a lot.
Yeah,
I've just changed the way I do it compared to just, going into World's Gym and just pounding out a bunch of lead, right? So as we age, we just have to be smart about making these adjustments, whether diet or how we work out or mindset, whatever.
we do. Our ego can be dangerous, especially for us guys. Because again, it's like sometimes you're looking in the rearview mirror and it's like, look, I used to be pushing 350. What's going on here? Um, But here's what I figured out. Okay, one, I tore a rotator cuff, and so an injury like that sometimes will wake you up. And this was a complete tear, so this was not like a little thing. And there was the surgery and the recovery and everything. Everything's fine, but it was just one of those moments when I wanted to get really strong. I was 51 years old. I got really strong, and then I tore a rotator cuff. And I was thinking to myself as I was coming back and getting into recovery because I'd told the surgeon and I had told my PT and then my trainer, my personal trainer, I want to get back 100%. 100% mobility, movement pattern, 100% strength. I want to be right back where I was. But the more I thought about it, it was like, okay, well, I was pressing two 85-pound dumbbells over my head when I tore it. When in my life will I ever need to lift a human body over my head?
Unless you meet
It,
that old couple at the hotel and you got to carry his ass down 3 flights of stairs.
well, yeah, but I'm not going to lift him up over my head and
No, you're not
walk him that way. But the point being
Yeah.
is I don't. My carry-on luggage is maybe 30 pounds. Okay, and I can put that in the overhead bin.
Yeah.
So um, the concept that I have is I call fit for task, and it's basically thinking about the things you love to do and the things you need to do so that you're fit for that. So life is an athletic event or it's not. And we
Mhm.
make that choice. And so if you want it to be adventurous and fun and go do things and be places and have all this opportunity, you have to train for that. And we're going to have setbacks. We're always going to have setbacks. Our body's never going to straight line better, 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 better. Um, and even maintaining over time can be difficult. Again, something happens. You get sick, tear something, something goes wrong. You've got to take a break. And, you know, the best thing you can do for yourself is realize, okay, this has happened. I have to recover from this. This has to be mission number one first. Then I can worry about the other things. So, an example, I was recently diagnosed with kidney cancer. And 3 weeks ago, yesterday, I had my left kidney removed. I have 27 stitches in my side that will come out in about a week. Um,
Shit.
yeah. Now, am I hitting the gym hard and trying to get back to my miles straight away?
I
No,
hope not.
no. Like I was doing, well over 100 miles a week, walking mostly, some running, but 100 miles a week, and I was lifting consistently 5 days a week. I had an hour and a half lifting session, and I had at least a 2-hour walking session every day because I could.
You
But
live on a Caribbean island and you
and
can do
it's
whatever you
beautiful.
want.
It's fun to get out and walk and do things. And then, yeah, I have my own gym right there where our living room's supposed to be in our apartment. It's a full gym. It's a full service gym that I fit into a 12 by 10 room. But so at this point, I got to heal. Okay. And then I get the staples out. And then but I've already started and said, okay, I can start working on steps and getting my mileage up on my walking. So each week I set a goal and I say, okay, I'm not jumping straight to 10,000 steps a day. I'm like, okay, what can I do? And then I am smart enough to say I'm not going to say every day because again, that's hard. But if I say 45,000 steps a week, sounds like a big number, but it's not 70,000, which it would be if it was 10 times 7. So I need to walk roughly an average of a little over 7,000 miles a day right now just to hit my number. And some days I walk 11 and some days I walk 5. But I'm able to look at it and say, I'm in this seat right now, and this is my windshield. I'm going in this direction, which is forward. I'm going to be better. I'll be lifting in a few more weeks. I said I'll give myself 6 weeks to let the wound heal, and then I'll get back to start pushing. Now, I'm not going to go back to the weights I was. I'm going to go back to stupid, silly, almost no weight. And if anyone were, happened to be walking by my little gym, which they won't, but if they did, and they're like, what are you doing with such small weights? I'm like, don't care what you think. I'm starting where I am and I'm going to slowly progress and work up and I'll get as strong as I need to be fit for task.
Brother, it hurts to even just sit down with 27 stitches and with all the stuff you went through. That's insane. But you see, you're doing exactly right. Who gives a crap? After my cardiac issues out of nowhere, I'm still not happy with it. I got questions. Um, and I started working out again after I did cardio rehab. I I'll start bench pressing again. So I literally just put the bar. Now, Olympic bar weighs like 45, 50 pounds. I don't remember what
Yeah,
the
it's
other.
40, about
That's it.
45 typically.
I
Yeah.
like 45, right? Without the collars or whatever. And so I posted it. I said, because I've posted my home gym before that I built. I work out outside because we live in the desert. It's always either hot or hotter, but I don't have to worry about rain. So I have my gym set up outside. And I posted that, well, this is where I got to start because I basically should have died. So shit, I'm just happy I'm here, right?
Yeah.
I got a bunch of dudes ripping me like, dude, you wussy, you're 60 years old. You say you're in shape. I'm just thinking to myself, bro.
Yeah.
I'm just happy to be alive, man. And I'm barely repping 50. All right. But you have to
The point is you're repping.
start.
Okay. I'm going to say
Yeah.
this. You're repping. There's so many 63-year-olds right there that just wouldn't even lay down on the bench under
Unless
that
they
bar
were
to start
napping.
with. Well, again, but the whole point is this: you start where you start and you move forward. And it's 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 interesting to me, but I see it all the time. So it's like you'll get this person will sit there and say, I can't do this, I can't do this. And then people say, you just need determination. You just need to gut it out, make it happen. And the whole point is most of the people that are in that position don't remember where they came from. There was a point in time when all of those guys were 14 years old and they walked into a gym with their buddies the very first time, and that 45-pound bar was more than they could push by themselves. Okay. And they had the peer pressure because all their friends are there. And then there was probably some mentor guy that was in the gym, saw these young guys, took them under his shoulder, started teaching them a few things. And then they, over time, started figuring out how they could get to the gym more often. They could afford their membership. They could da 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 da. Anyway, they developed the self efficacy to keep doing it. And they don't remember that. They think it's just determination. They don't realize that they went through a process of developing motivation and developing the mindset and the capacity to even be able to do what they do. And so when they start talking to someone else, they don't recognize that. And so they're not coming from a place of knowledge. They're coming from a place of ignorance because they've forgotten who they are. When you first walked in the gym at 14 years old, you couldn't bench press the bar. Should I have been laughing at you then? No, you were in the gym. I should be clapping and commending you for pushing yourself and doing the right thing, period. But unfortunately, we live in an environment where that's not what people like to do, and they're on the internet, so you can't punch them in the face. So say what they want to say, and I'll say if the gym you go to is the gym you go to and you like it and it gives you what you need, then you're in the right place. If doing 45 pounds is your start, then that's your start. No one else is going on the journey you're on. No one else will be as successful at the journey you're on as you will. So just you be you and ignore
Amen.
anyone else that says be something else.
Amen, brother. I just need to go get some purple spandex stretch pants for when I go into Planet Fitness. But
That'll get you well, I don't know if you can film yourself in Planet Fitness, but I would just say that'll definitely get you some followers on something.
oh yeah, well I live in Palm Springs, California. That would get me a lot of followers. But it's funny about Planet Fitness is, they've got stuff splattered all over. You're enough. You're fabulous just as you are. They do a lot of this stuff. And it's true. Because people who walk in there, and I give everyone credit. I mean, just exactly like you said. I mean, I see people walk in there and I'm like, good for you, dude or gal.
Yeah.
You are way out of shape. I mean, historically, ridiculously, unhealthily out of shape. Yet you walk through that door in your tight little spandex, right? You got it all going on, and you're trying. I mean, anyone who would give you shit for that as they're sitting on their couch watching Oprah eating bonbons, why would you listen to that in any way, shape, or form? And just to touch on age again real quick though, I we had an assistant. Her name was Regina. Everyone loved Regina. We own a real estate company, so if shit hit the fan. We had a client who was mad about something. We had Regina call because, hi, this is Regina. I hear you had a How can I help you? Oh, it's like you just couldn't get mad at Regina. But this is what Regina did. She would literally fall down and get up 10 times on each side every morning. So she would purposely fall down, get up, fall down, get up, fall down, and then do it on the other side. And she told me this. I go, That's freaking, she's 82, right? I'm like, that's freaking brilliant. Number
Yeah.
one, you're strengthening yourself. You know you're not going to hurt yourself. I'm sure you put a pillow or something. Negative. However, biggest challenge for women your age or people your age is falling. You're going to break
Hmm.
something. And also not being able to get up. That commercial is real. I fall and I can't get up. So that was her way of every morning, even at her age, doing, I can do something. And she was a big walker, but you've got to do something, right, coach? I mean,
Yeah.
you just have to start and not make it difficult. I love your wellness roadmap because you just have to start. I mean, it's a gentle, kind, full body book and plan. I love
Thank you. Thank you. Learned a few things since then. So, back then I was a little bit more prescriptive about the way I was eating and what I was doing. I've come to realize that there's definitely more than one way to do this. There's your way and there's my way, and they're not necessarily the same. The same thing with health and fitness, and all of it is you've got to find your path. I got to a point where when corporate laid me off, I was like, came home and told my wife, I said, I don't want to go back there. I don't like those people. I don't like sitting in a room talking about head count and span of control and acting like, okay, laying off three people, it's just three people. Like, no, they've got names and families and stories. And that's you're affecting someone's life. You have to be a little bit more serious about this than sitting in a conference room saying, oh shit, we gotta cut 10% of our staff. Like, do we? Or is this just okay, we want to hit numbers so we get our bonuses and they get their little check and they go home. So when I got laid off, I told my wife, I said, I really don't want to go back. I want to figure out how I can make this thing work so we don't have to go back to work like that. So it's a whole part of the story of where I became started training full time, wrote the book, got into all of that. And then now, yeah, running a bed and breakfast because we're our own boss. So if we want to yell at the staff, we're yelling at ourselves.
I freaking love it. Well, Coach, you've been amazing, and I'm so grateful for our time, and you were so gracious. I mean, we had a hiccup. You had a flight somewhere or something. We had to cancel the first time, so you've been really
That was
gracious
that was
about it.
actually for the kidney cancer thing. So
Oh,
that's
yeah, you didn't
that's
tell
where
me
I
that
was for that. Yeah.
because I was really mad. You didn't tell
Yeah,
me at
that
the
was
beginning.
that was the whole
Wow.
diagnosis part because I had gotten the sonogram and I knew that I had a mass, and so that was the going back and getting the CT scan and the actual diagnosis, and then the surgery plan and all of that. So I do apologize for that, but it was
No.
kind of a priority in my life at that point.
Yeah.
So because I wanted to be on this show, I really did, but it was the second most important
Oh.
thing for me to do.
At least I was number two. You're doing well, number two. Um, but yeah, wow, I did not know that. But there's something about the scan anxiety. When I went through the cancer, that was one of the things that you get a scan and it's like, oh, we'll let you know in 2 weeks. I'm like, 2 weeks? Just look at the thing. For Christ's sake, you're looking at it. 2 weeks. I can't
I
I get
I
scan
I'll
anxiety.
tell you this story. I was sitting there. Okay, so I got the sonogram and the doctor's doing the sonogram, and I could tell on my left side that he was not happy with what he was seeing, and he was spending a little bit more time over there, and so he was really stressed out. And so I just decided I would go ahead and kind of make a little joke just to kind of lighten the mood. And I said, "So, is it a boy or a girl?" Because that was the last time a sonogram was used in my presence. That was what we were doing for my daughter 30 some odd years ago. But he didn't really like the joke. I thought it was good, but at any rate, so I knew this growth was there. I knew it was very big, and so I'm going back to try to get a CT scan. Well, they look at kidney function to decide if they can do the contrast therapy part that they got to do for the scan, and I'm above the number that's on their little chart at the desk, and they're like, "No, you can't do this." I'm like, "I have to do this. There's not like a choice. I have to get this scan done because this is the next step before surgery because we know we have a good idea what it is, but we have to get this scan." And they're like, "No, you can't get the scan." So I'm like, I'm frustrated. And then I go talk to my doctor. He's like, "I'm going to put you in with a kidney doctor, and then she'll see if you're okay to get the scan." And so after I meet with him, I go back down there and I say, "I just want to go ahead and schedule it so I know when I'm coming back, when I can get this done. Do I stay and get it done? Do I go home?" So I was trying to figure out what their calendar was for me to be able to do this scan, and they still would not put me on the calendar. And I'm like, "I just wanna be on the calendar. I just wanna know there's a date." And I'm starting to get really, lack of a better word, angry that they won't just say, "Yeah, we can do this on Monday," or "We can do this on Saturday. We still need the clearance, but we can do it." They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that. So finally, I'm like, "Okay," I just gave up frustrated. I went up, saw the doctor, came back down, gave them the paper that said it was okay for me to get the scan, and they got me scheduled. And then I sat there and had to apologize to every one of them. I'm like, "Look, I got, I got cancer." And I said, I want to keep moving forward because if I'm not moving forward, I feel like I'm losing this battle. And so I'm sorry I yelled. I'm sorry I was angry. I'm sorry, all those things, but just realize where it was coming from. It was coming from a desire to keep moving forward, not from any anger or animosity towards you. You had a rule. I understand you had a rule. I just wanted to push forward. I wanted to get something done or felt like I got something done, even if it was just scheduling an appointment. Um, but yeah, it is frustrating when you're going through something like that and there's so many unknowns and there's still a lot of unknowns. I got to go back and get some other stuff done because they took it out and they say they were very good about getting it all out. The whole kidney went. So I know the tumor's gone, but at this point, we don't know what else might have happened as a result. So I've still got some work to do, and I'll do it step by step, pushing forward, getting things done. Um, but for me, emotionally, it doesn't make any sense to think about it from a perspective of the what if, the bad things, other than just being prepared. If something were to happen to me, I wanna make sure that my wife has what she needs. I wanna make sure my family has what it needs. But beyond that, it's just really, okay, what can I do positive today to move myself forward? And right now it's eating better, moving better, getting myself more fit. Because if I do have to go through something else, I wanna start from the highest point possible, um, so that if there is a decline of sarcopenia and all that, my base started a little higher. So as soon as I can lift, I will be, and then we'll take the next step when the next step happens.
It's a crazy story, brother, but it does come
Mhm.
back to, like you said, our bodies are miracle machines, and being having negative thoughts or scary thoughts, which are totally normal and natural. When I first got the diagnosis, I had a weird response. Even my doctor said, "Haven't had that response before," because I was pissed. I said, "Doc, this is bullshit. I'm way too healthy to have cancer." I go, "No, I've worked my whole life. Specifically, my dad died at 62 of a heart attack. I specifically, for 30 years, have set my diet to have no inflammation, no, know that. I specifically eat in a way to not get cancer or heart disease, and there's no cancer in my family anywhere. This is bullshit." I'm pissed. He's like, "Well, look at the other side of it," he said. "If you hadn't been this healthy, if you weren't this healthy, and if you weren't so proactive with your health," because I was like you, I just beat the shit out of them. I go, "I want these tests, these tests, these tests, these tests." I'm not taking no for an answer, right? Um, if I wasn't so proactive, it could have gone on forever because they just drag this stuff on, right? So you
Yeah.
have to be proactive. You have to think positive. And if you go into it, like you said, healthy, don't get sick and then say, "Well, I better start getting healthy because I'm sick," right? If you go into it, then the battle is so much better, not easier.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but it's better, right?
Well, and I think that one of the things that kind of surprises even, even the people at the hospital was because of my fitness level. It's like, okay, once the surgery was done, I was ready to check out. They were like, "Well, we have to keep you 48 hours." And literally I'm like, my doctors cleared me, and they're like, "Okay, well, the other doctor cleared you, but you're supposed to be here for 48 hours." And so now they're just avoiding my room because I'm
Because he's just
dressed.
gonna give a shit about getting down there.
I'm dressed and ready to go. And they're like, okay, you're supposed to be 48 hours. And then they walk off. And then, no one wants to come by my room until right at 3 o'clock, which is when I was taken in for surgery at 3 o'clock. So they waited until 48 hours from when first went into surgery to come back in my room and tell me, okay, you can go, and bring the wheelchair to take me to the door. But yeah, it's like but yeah, I had a
Dude, it's not a bad idea to stay and be, under surveillance for a little while after you have a freaking kidney removed.
I was for 2 days. It was just one of those. Well, okay. Here's the funny story. So, like, the first day they come in and they've got a guy and a girl come in and they do the sponge bath thing and everything. And so then these two women come in the next morning, and I'm like, no, no, I'm going to be checking out. As soon as they take the catheter out, I'm in the shower, so I'll be fine. And so they came by, and then maybe like an hour and a half later, they came by again to try to give me a sponge bath. I said, no, as soon as he takes the catheter out, I'm taking a shower. And I was thinking to myself, I'm just gonna have to grab the thing off the bed and go over and take a shower with it still in because they are insisting on giving me a sponge bath that I don't want to have. So I was a good patient, but not a great patient. I'll put it that way.
You suck as a patient, my Oh my God, that's awesome. Coach, you've been amazing, but before I let you get out of here, um, I'm still laughing. That's funny. Yeah. Before I let you get out of here, though, I lied earlier. I said I had one question, the what if you could question, and I gave it to you ahead of time, but I lied. Um, I have two questions.
Okay.
I don't give you the second question, but my second question is this. If there's something you'd like to leave us with, a thought, a quote, something that really means something to Coach. What would that last thought be that you'd like to leave us with?
I guess the gist of it is this, particularly with regards to health and fitness, you define your path. You're never stuck. I see 85-year-olds running the 100-yard dash faster than I could when I was in high school. Okay. And it's not that I want to be able to run the 100-yard dash that fast. It's the fact that we can. It's the fact that, if you train for something because you want to be able to do it, you can. If you want to play golf until you're 100 and something, you can. You just have to train yourself. You can't do it just playing golf because you'll still decline and then eventually won't be able to play. You got to do the things that are necessary. Your example of the 85-year-old woman who just practiced getting up. That is amazing. That is exactly what we're talking about. She didn't just get up once. She did it for repetitions so that if she ever found herself on the floor, she could get up. Um, that's what I'm talking about. We are never stuck. We can set our own path. We can decide what we can and cannot do. I will not be the guy standing on the third floor sending my wife off. I will be the guy that, if necessary, I will carry her down. So just realize you're not stuck unless your brain doesn't let you do the things you want to do. So you decide who you are. So who do you want to be when you grow up?
I'm never growing up, but I'm definitely snowboarding with my kids at 95 years old.
There you
My
go. Yeah.
grandkids. Yeah. I mean, you said Jim Rome earlier. And so I'll give you another Jim Rome that I love. Jim Rome used to always say, "You're not a tree. You're not planted somewhere. You could get up and move. You could change. You could do something. You have the ability to change, move, and go. It's up to you. Like you said, it's the old Cabeza, right? It's
Yeah.
you got to have that mindset. But you've been great, Coach. Everybody, we've been blessed with a little bit of time of Coach Alan Meisner. Alan has the podcast you got to go check out. It's the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, which I'm going to go subscribe to right after this. Also, he has the award-winning book, The Fitness Roadmap, a straightforward guide to health, fitness after 40. We're all going to head down to Panama and stay at Lulu's. It's going to be a party. You guys got to come on down. I'll have to tell my wife because, like I said, she travels all over there. But Alan, you've been great. So where can we get more Coach Alan? Where can we find your stuff? Where can we find your books, your websites, your coaching? Where can we get more of Alan Meister?
Okay. Well, number one, you like podcasts, you're listening to a podcast. I have a podcast. I've been doing it for over 10 years. I think we're at episode 740 right now. So, lot out there. I talk to subject matter experts. I read their books. We really dive into stuff that's valuable that's in their book. So you can order it, and then you've got some actionable things there. That's at 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, and it's anywhere you listen to podcasts. The book is called The Wellness Roadmap. It's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever you want to order a book. You can order the book. It's also audiobook. So if you don't hate my voice and you like audiobooks, you can listen to me read it. It takes about 5.5 hours at normal speed. If you speed it up a little bit, then you can get through me faster. But the book's also available on Audible and, of course, Amazon Audible. And then with regards to everything else, I've got 40plusfitness.com, and that's where you're going to get a link to the training stuff I do and everything else.
No, man, you've got that golden baritone. We're gonna love to listen to that book. You got that. You got the face for radio and a voice for radio. Kidding. No, I
Yeah.
say that to myself all the time. But no, you've got. It's
I
funny because
definitely got the hair for radio.
you definitely have that. For people who are listening to this and not watch this, he's got a purple mohawk that's frickin' rocking. It's a rock star.
Yeah.
As you can tell, I love books. I'm obsessed with books. I try to read a guest book before I go on, or at least listen to some of it. Just sometimes I just can't. I've just got so many books.
Yeah.
But but I always ask my guests real quick to let you go. When they say they've got the audiobook, I said, "Did you read it yourself?" The first thing I ask them, and they go, a lot of them say, "No, I didn't want to read it. I don't like my voice or this and that." And I said, I've listened to a lot of audiobooks, and I tell you, if you don't pick the right person to read it, your book is lost. It's lost because the voice
Yeah.
doesn't fit the message. So I'm so glad you read your own book and recorded it in your voice because it's your voice, your message, right? So that
Well,
was
it would
really
have been weird as a podcaster to then have somebody else reading my book. It's like, that's not him. I've heard his voice. I know what he sounds like.
and I've read a bunch of books written by guys and they have women reading the book. And I'm like,
Yeah.
nothing against women.
Well, and
I
it's funny
love
because
women, but
I have a guy that I work with, John Goodman, and he had his previous book, and I got his book, and he didn't read the audio book, and I thought, okay, well, why not do your own? Because he's done podcasts and everything else. He did do his most recent book, and I was so glad to hear that he did that because it's 1,000 times better because it is him. It's uniquely him and his voice and his inflection, and you can tell the passion he has for the topic because you can hear it in his voice. Um, so I may not have picked the right person. I picked myself. Uh,
it was
it
an
was a
executive decision. The whole team got
as a learning
together.
decision. If you want to write a book, let me tell you this: if you want to write a book, you need to read it out loud. So go ahead and record the audio book, basically, as you're going through and finishing up the final little bits, because you'll find those things in there. This is not the way I would say it because I was trying to read my written words, and I I would stumble over them trying to read that, and I was like, "Okay, I could have said this better." And I would say it better, but I wrote it that way, so I gotta read it that way. But it's one of the things I learned, if I do ever write another book, I'll have recorded the audiobook before I do the final submission of the text, because I'll want it to truly be from front to back like I'm having a conversation with you. So that is one thing I learned, is that you do wanna read the book out loud. I didn't do that as much as I should until I was recording it for the audiobook. There were sections on it, I was like, "God, I could have done that so much better." You know, you're always gonna have that. You get published and it's like, "Okay, coulda, woulda, shoulda." But that
Well,
said, I
because you're
don't.
your own worst critic, so it doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
But if I just know if I'd spent, just that time on the front, because I was gonna do it anyway. I was gonna read the audiobook anyway, release it at the same time. I should have done the audiobook before I sent the final version to the
Well, I know it sounds great. You got a great voice. I
Mm.
love the what I've read about the book. I love it. I love all your stuff going on. So thank you again. Everybody look for Coach Alan Meisner. Go look up the 40 Plus Fitness podcast and find his book, The Wellness Roadmap. And this has been wonderful, and I'm grateful for your time.
Thanks, Gary. I appreciate every minute of it. Thank you.
You got it, buddy. Thanks, guys. I'll see ya.